Hey guys, this is Kirob speaking, and in today's little dev update we are going to talk about the first release version of the Car Designer revamp. And, well, things have been going well, although we are not quite as done as we would have liked. So it will be a little rough around the edges, as you should expect from any open beta phase we are going into at the first start of it. And yeah, we have looked at a lot of the game mechanics that were supposed to be revamped in the last kind of big little dev update we did. And those have been implemented for the most part now, and today there are a few little things outstanding which need to be solved and implemented, but other than that, it's all good. So let's take a look, let's just have a run through the Car Designer and see what's in and what will be added. Alright, first thing you notice when I'm getting into this, oh wow, the frame rate in the background. Well, this widget here is slightly overloaded because this sandbox right now contains 1,400 cars. They will be baked into... These are AI generated, and thus they kind of suck right now. But very early years, as you can see, 1942, 1941 and so on. But yes, so the AI is in the game, or rather, we can use it as a tool already. It has a few problems still, which are going to be solved. And that is, it doesn't know about sway bars and camber yet. It just selects whatever there, so it doesn't do proper circle test tuning, and that will be resolved probably today. But anyway, so let's get into making a new car. Alright, the selection of cars has not changed much since the public version we recently updated, so you should have the current status of the car lineup already. Maybe there's one or two new in here, I don't know. But let's build something reasonably modern. How about a family sport vehicle? That should be pretty good. So let's choose this one. Well, it says convertible here, but it really should show the version that is currently filtered. It doesn't right now, but it doesn't matter. Oh yeah, this does look very nicely. Your engineers aren't very competent, as you can see, but yeah. So, just as an illustration, let's build a family sports vehicle. Oh, by the way, why were there 1,400 cars in the sandbox? And that is because currently we have activated such that the competitors, or your sandbox cars, actually are competing with the one you are currently making. So yeah, that's how you quickly implement demographics. And that will not be the case in your version, of course, because that was terribly slow, as you could see. So, family sport. I'm just going to go through this and only mention things that are new. For an engine, I just made a quick inline 6, pretty over square, 260 horsepower. Not quite revving it out because I'm using standard internals to keep the costs down. And now let's get into the biggest series of changes here, and that would be the trim designer. Okay, so I've just clicked through and built the first version of this car without any tuning, and it's already looking quite promising. We are scoring very high in family sport and fun premium, and also pony and the fun categories. Let's take a look at what my competitors are doing. There's one funny bug in there though, that actually considers the car you're selling as a competitor too, so you can't currently reach more than 100. That is why they are all maxed here. But yeah, it's looking like it's falling nicely. Family sport was what we aimed at, and that's exactly what we got. Oh, pretty good so far. Well, the AI is at least producing something of a basis right now that seems reasonable, even though it can't properly tune yet. But let's go through the various, aspects here and see what has changed. I will not be able to cover everything, but yeah, let's scratch the surface, shall we? The first thing that really comes to mind is that all the all-wheel drive stuff has been fixed. And, well, yeah, this is correct, yes. The chosen power distribution is effectively two-wheel drive. Yeah, it's entirely at the rear. So let's separate those, and there we go. You see the grip versus the engine power that is delivered to the wheel, and the jagged line that is the yellow curve is the resulting acceleration. So yeah, now you can tune for front and rear specifically, individually, and that's all working apart from the lines looking very weird, and we have to figure out why that is, but it's usable. It's just looking ugly, but the functionality is there, and finally all-wheel drive is fixed. No longer do you get a magical super grip bonus as soon as you hit all-wheel drive and, well, yeah, have it all at the rear or something. You get double the grip. That was the case before in the version you're currently playing, and that of course is terrible, because that's not reality. This one is much more realistic. It looks at the grip versus how much power is delivered and sees if that works or not. So yeah, also the warnings are there to help you set it up correctly, although most of you will just optimize it for optimal acceleration, I guess. Or for optimal off-roading, because that is important now too. You have to set your power distribution. For optimal off-roading, you will have to set your power distribution to be approximately your weight distribution, of course. Another thing, top speed. You may not always want to set it to whatever you can, as such that it's getting you the maximum top speed anymore, because we have tied tire costs into this. So let's see. Currently we're just we have a top speed of where does it tell us? Doesn't tell us. 257-ish. Okay, so that will be pretty costly. Let's see. Currently they cost us 966 in materials. It's radials, of course. We don't use cross-plies in 2017. That's entirely new. So 666 it was, but then you say like, nah, okay, let's get a little bit more acceleration out of it instead, and a little bit more wheel spin, I guess, too, and reduce the top speed to below 240. And see what it does. Well, these have just become a lot cheaper, and that is because they will get. It's not on here yet. It will be today, I guess, in the next patch, the next internal patch. A few things haven't been. I've gotten an older version here to show you, but yeah, there will be a speed rating on the tires, and if you want to go faster, well, you have to pay for it, because higher speed rating tires are more expensive. So yeah, that's a nice payoff there you get for investing more money. You can go faster, or you're allowed to go faster. Also, of course, this tooltip, very, very useful if you want to tune your individual gears, know a little bit about the actual ratios, the final drive, estimated top speed, and so on, and the individual wheel spin factors in each gear. And that is, the wheel spin here is measured as a percentage of the time you are actually wheel spinning at full throttle in that gear. So currently in second gear, in this little range we are using from there to here to the top, 62.3% of the time we are wheel spinning. Another big thing that has changed is the setup. Let me see if I can get it on here. It's so useful. Okay, yes, we can. So currently this is a rear-wheel drive car. And of course you would want to set up a rear-wheel drive car differently than a front-wheel drive car when it comes to steering, how steering works, or how understeer or oversteer it is, because front-wheel drive cars pull you straight when you are accelerating while driving a curve, a corner, and rear-wheel drive cars want to spin you out. So in general, you want to set up a rear-wheel drive car a little bit more understeery, so that when you go on power, you don't instantly spin it out. And that is now reflected in how you need to set up your steering behavior. Look at what happens here. Now we are fully rear-wheel drive. And now I'm sliding it. You see the lines move. Yep, more front-wheel drive. You need to set up a lot more aggressively towards oversteer to be acceptable. And you see these values change. So if we set it somewhere here, I now have optimal drivability. That's the blue line, optimal drivability, where the marker is. If you want to hit optimal drivability, you place the marker on the blue line. If you want to hit optimal sportiness, you place the marker on the red line. A problem here is for you that if you want to make a really sporty front-wheel drive car, that will be difficult, because this here, this red line, is placed at 102%, so 2% higher than previously the sportiness line was, and it's always very difficult to tune something to an oversteery behavior up there. So yeah, it will be harder to set up sporty front-wheel drive cars. It will be much easier to set up sporty rear-wheel drive cars. It will be easier to set up tame or drivable front-wheel drive cars, and it will be harder, slightly harder, to set up drivable rear-wheel drive cars. Alright, yeah, that makes sense, right? There is, of course, this new tire designation. For the most part, they have not changed. Let's see if that is already in. No, it's not. It's not changing the letters here just yet, not appropriately. But the tires you are using, oh wow, the cross-ply tires have a minimum profile of 85 right now. So yeah, they are. That's one of the reasons you want to change over to radial. Cross-ply tires are a lot cheaper in the early days, though, so that's why you want to use them. Also, they are more comfortable, but they handle like crap. So yeah, maybe not use them for too long. But the radials, like I said, are pretty expensive at the start. So, alright, but you will get here the new tire designation as soon as it's properly implemented. We're keeping the rim offset because we couldn't find a good solution to automate it. It didn't really work with early on cars. They kind of need a different setup there than you would expect. Yeah, this is a very modern style of making cars with the wheels so far out. In earlier days they were very far in, so it would look weird if we automated it. So we're just letting that go and keep it as is. But yeah, what I wanted to say, the tire designations here will be the proper tire marking correspondence. The one thing that is missing here is the speed rating index. That is already in the version that I don't have, I think. So that will be in your version you get. And that will just be a letter after the load index. That 87 is the load index, and hopefully the tooltips here will give you info about the load capacity. Is it already in there? Yes. Okay, front. Alright, are they? Yes, they're different. Good. So you see the maximum load per tire, and if you're making a transport vehicle, delivery vehicle, or utility vehicle, that is quite important to make something that has high load capacity. The most important thing is to have a large tire diameter. As you can see, the ratings are going up, and a pretty high profile for the tires. So if we take a look here, we currently have a 70. That's pretty good, but I think an 80 or 85 would be better. So now we already have a 101 and 103 load capacity rating, and that corresponds to, in game here, they are pretty accurate. I've modeled it after the real world load indices, and currently support a maximum load of 887 kilograms per wheel. When it comes to brakes, not much has changed here. So let's jump forward instead. Although there are of course a few more new warnings in here, like brake force compared to grip levels and brake fade and so on. This will also be a little bit more fleshed out than it is in my version right now. Today we are going to add 3 different types of brake fade. One for drivability, which is pretty easy to achieve a 0 score on. So like normal driving that is not under heavy load or anything, that will pretty easy to get you to a decent brake fade, i.e. 0. And then there's the sportiness rating, which will use the car's top speed for some tests, and it is a much harsher test. And then we have the utility one, which does everything while the car is fully loaded, and see what brake fade you get there. And these are going into the various calculations. Brake fade for drivability goes into drivability, the one for sportiness is of course going in there, and utility into utility. So yeah, that makes sense, I guess. So let's continue on. Aerodynamics, we still haven't reactivated these. They will be, maybe not in your version, but they will be come back very soon. If it's an easy fix from here on, then yeah, they will return, and they will definitely return eventually. So yeah, probably in either the version you are going to play first, the open beta coming up, or the one after that. And then of course we have the seating arrangement, and this is still slightly buggy, I think, in some cases. All of these things I'm showing you are just implemented and like roughly, very roughly balanced, but not fine-tuned yet when it comes to balance. So when you see something that seems odd, consider two things. Either it is not properly balanced just yet, but will be addressed, or B, it is slightly bugged, or C, you don't quite understand the concept. And that of course is more than two things, but yeah. Anyway, so we could... Oh, yeah, right. I can show you some of the effects here. So Family Sport does accept... Oh, the tooltip isn't there yet. Damn it. That is in the version I'm not having right now. It's too bad, because it shows you the range of seats you are allowed, or that is desired from the demographic, and otherwise you will get a penalty on your overall car's desirability if you're outside of that range. But of course the seats and the plus seats will allow you to get into that range or not. So this one, for example, would count as a 2-seater, but also as a 5-seater. So this is a pretty big change. Entertainment and interior are now combined with one quality slider, and the weight progression has been reworked, and then we have on the next page, it still says interior. That's also fixed in the version I'm not playing right now. And the power steering has been reworked. It is much more important now. The traction aids are basically the same as before, but now you get the old safety package choice. And we have implemented such also for this, I think. Yes. Take a look here. So we have luxury infotainment, and the HUD is also available there. That's the new tech. And you see the price differential here. Yeah. So for newer tech, you will have to pay a very steep price. So that's also something new. Previously they were costing the same, and that is now no longer the case. Also for your premium sat-nav versus premium infotainment, you see the price jump by almost a factor of 2. So if you want to have that fancy new entertainment, and then you see that, yeah, you have to pay quite the price for getting up in these stats. But depending on what car you make, you don't really care. But now the big thing, and one thing that I'm really liking. This changes everything. We now have proper suspension tuning that, well, it was kind of proper before, but not really tied into the stats much, so it didn't really matter. Now it matters. And you see some, yay, some little icons here. It's working and nice. So, yeah. The settings you have are the same as before, and you even have some really good presets that are already working. But let's take a look at what is in here. Whoa, loads of stats, right? Yes, loads of stats, and they're important stats. So this is our new bump graph, and this new bump graph tells you how the sprung mass is reacting when driving, or when driving off a ledge of 1 centimeter height. So it starts on 1 centimeter, and you could also say that's a bump, right? It kind of behaves like a bump. And then it overshoots and then comes back and oscillates a little bit. So you want to tune it such that these lines Well, the front line, of course, starts dropping first, right? Because, well, the front wheels reach the bump earlier than the rear wheels. And as a rule of thumb, you want to set up your rear about 10% stiffer than the front, so that the rear can catch up to the front, and that is for the springs. While the dampers, you want to have about-ish the same dampening coefficient. What does that really mean? Well, it is explained when you... That's new, by the way, yes. You get, for some of the pages, you get a little question mark here. And when you hover over it, you get tooltips like these. But on this side, there are warnings, and here there is helpful information for you to set things up. And there will be quite a bit of helpful information for tuning the suspension. So the first concept that is really important is ride frequency. The stiffer your springs and the lighter the car, the higher the frequency is. So a heavy car will need stiffer springs to get to the same frequency. Let's say we want to set up this car to be very sporty. So, okay, let's go about... Now, first of all, let's make it pretty comfortable but also drivable. Then we hold the car, and then I set it up to be sporty. And we shall see how much of a difference that makes on the car. And then we talk about what consequences that entails. I think that's very exciting and a massive improvement of the game overall. Okay, so here we go. We want to have drivable and comfortable. Right now it's pretty close. That's actually pretty close. Maybe a little bit more towards drivability. It tells you what modifiers you have here. So it's a factor 1.03 to your drivability score right now. And your sportiness is suffering and the comfort is pretty high. That's because it's reasonably soft. So let's amp up the springs a bit and you see the ride frequency increase. Let's set the front to 1.3 and the rear to 1.41. That's not really 10%. Let's set it up one more. Yeah, that's about right. Also, you have to consider, and this is with 2 passengers and 30 kilograms of cargo. If we put just a driver in there, then you will see different ride frequencies. If you're fully loaded, then you see yet again, ooh, that's a little soft, but yeah, okay. If you go below 1 hertz, you can say that it becomes vomit-inducing driving characteristics for those that sit in the rear. That aside, we don't really care right now, because that isn't in the comfort calculations. Oh, well, it is, to some degree. If you, on the comfort setting, are below 1 hertz, then you're fucked. But yes, so here we have now a pretty good setup. We have equal drivability and comfort, both above 100%, so it's a good setup, I would say. Very, very high roll angle, though. Quite terrible. So let's stiffen that up a bit. So below 5 degrees, that's a lot better. But now we have only stiffened up the springs. The dampers have not been meddled with right now. They do have equal dampening coefficients currently, and they should have. But I think they are slightly too soft. Let's up them slightly. You see how the bump graph changes. And we can keep them about the same. You see comfort go down. Nah, maybe it goes down a bit too much for our taste. So let's say this is our setup for now. And we hold the trim. So this is what we are comparing to now. Now, let's make something more sporty. Now, for sportiness, we want to have a higher ride frequency. Let's go with maybe 1.6. That's pretty sporty already. And in the rear, 1. High. Yeah, that's 10% roughly. And you can see that it's 10% by looking at this and see that, oh yeah, the curves align after one oscillation. There they meet and then they stay together. That's good. That's what we want. The dampers are far too loose for this here, so let's amp them up. Now we have a pretty good damper setup. Let's see, this is better. Yes. You see them catch up nicely, and now we have a very drivable and sporty setup, but a quite uncomfortable one. And just look at the stat difference. So now we have higher drivability. It is much more responsive in how it drives. Much higher sportiness. What kind of change is this? That's like 20% or something, right? almost 20%. So that's massive difference. And then we have, well, comfort. Not quite as comfortable anymore. So you see, out of just the same car, you can now provide 2 different or 3 different tunes and get completely different results out of it. Realistically so, I have to add. Because let's take a Phantom, right? We take a Phantom and then we rise it up, lower it down, and then put some really ass-hard springs on it, right? So, oh yes, bump stops right below where like 1 centimeter of travel, and then yeah, have fun with that one. Is it still comfortable as a car? Well, the interior is nice, and as long as it's not driving, it's really nice. But no, it's not comfortable anymore. So this is what we have simulated with this new tuning concept. And I think it will improve gameplay a lot. But you will have, that requires more of the player too. Because you will have to know and read, like with the little question mark, what things are, where the optimal values are, which are all mentioned by the question mark in the version I'm not playing right now. And that will help you set it up. It's very easy to do so, as you just saw. You will have to increase the ride frequencies and check that when you're tuning for different things, like in utility or something, that you... Whoa! Yeah, that stiffer springs mean that you can load a lot more into it. And then this button puts it under full load, and you see... now the rear ride frequency is at 1.07. Woo! Yeah, it's a little soft in the rear and very hard in the front still when you load it up. It's to be expected. Utility vehicles need to be set up in a special way, and that would be something like this. Let's try it out. Let's make this into a kind of utility vehicle here. So we would loosen up the front, maybe like this, but the rear can stay. Do we need more of this? Yeah, maybe. And this means that we need to lower the dampers in the front. This is all fucked, as you can see. It is all fucked. Okay. So now we have a rear load capacity of basically 919 kilograms. And when you put this one on, you see that, okay, now the frequency difference isn't all too terrible. We could lower this still, but yeah. That's the problem with utility vehicles, that you will have a very harsh ride when it's not fully laden or half laden. And you've probably experienced that if you have ridden any kind of, or driven any kind of utility vehicle, that they usually are very uncomfortable until you load them up with people or with cargo. The ride height is very important for that too. There's still something missing in here, which is in the new version as well, and that is that it instantly displays you the maximum load capacity, because the more travel you have in your suspension, the more you can load it down, right? Well, there will be this tilt factor we talked about before, but yeah, that's a different story. So let's tune it again to be a little bit more sporty, not fully laden, thank you very much. That is looking better, and for sportiness it is now perfect. Yeah, let's tune for sportiness. These final testing pages will change quite a bit as well. I've decided that this is a horror show that is just a clusterfuck and needs to be sorted out. It is too busy, there are too many things on here. So what we're going to do is, the design page will be the default landing page, like as a summary where you see your car, no graphs up. And then you get the markets next, which include better sorted main car stats. Next up thereafter is the test track, which includes all performance stats and a few more than you currently see here. More brake fade information, more load capacity information, the new towing capacity, and so on. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there, and it will be nicely laid out. What will become super helpful, which I still need to talk about, is all this. And here you see a bit under the hood of what has changed. For example, drivability. We have new base stats, so that drivability and sportiness are more well separated. Previously they behaved in a very similar fashion. That was like cornering, braking, and what was it? Not acceleration for that, but something like footprint, I think, for drivability. Yeah, it was footprint. So now we've changed that to evasion, which is braking and cornering. So that has become 1 base stat instead of 2 for it. The footprint, how large the car is still in here. And then we have control, which is all driver inputs. That is the gearbox and that is the steering. And the steering is determined by the power steering setup you have and how heavy the car is. Sportiness remains the same for the most part. There are not many changes in here. Comfort has changed. And is this already the new version? Yes, it is, I believe. So we have an entertainment base value, we have an interior base value, and a suspension base value. And that is working out better than before. There was some weird base comfort value in there, which was arcane magic to me. I don't know. It didn't really do much apart from adding something flat. It's a pretty constant stat too. And then we have in Prestige. Right, that's new. Yes. In Prestige, we now have rolled together the 2 engine factors that were there before. That was capacity and cylinders. We have rolled that into 1 and instead added interior as one of the base values for the car's Prestige. And then the size, of course, remains there. Larger is better for Prestige. Bigger dick, you know, bigger E-peen. And then safety. Lots of things have changed here. The body, the weight, and the footprint are now the base stats instead of some arbitrary values which were kind of black boxy. And yeah, that should be the progression. Like the progressions of all of these are not perfectly fine-tuned, like I mentioned before. So keep that in mind when you're playing it. There will be more fine-tuning to all kinds of dependencies, and I've not been able to do much testing on it because we just today are going to be finished with the implementation. Practicality, major overhaul. Major overhaul. It's completely revamped. It was wiped clean and redone. So now we have number of seats and doors and the this is wrong. The text here is wrong. This is the passenger volume per footprint value you get here. So the more cubic your car is with passenger space, the more practical it is. And of course, some of the factors have been revamped, or all of the factors have been revamped. And that will be like things like, do you fit into a garage or below bridges? Yes, no. Do you have enough ground clearance to get up over speed bumps? Yes, no. Is your ass so wide that you don't fit through like narrow passages or lanes that are too small? Yes, no. And then load capacity. Do you have a sensible amount of load capacity left over so that you can use the car for things? Yes, no. Well, this is all, of course, not a yes, no, but rather a sliding scale of adequacy. And body. What was the body? Oh, yeah, right. If it's a convertible or not. Convertibles don't tend to be quite as practical. And neither are pickups because, well, yeah, rain and stuff, right? So, utility. Also, clean slate, all wiped and completely redone. And we have plenty of things you have been asking for in here previously, and that would be the main thing would be proper load capacity and towing capacity, and that will be one stat that is actually calculated and given to you in kilograms, like how many kilograms of weight can your car pull, and or reliably pull. And here are various new base stats instead of a magical just base value that is given to you. So load capacity determines one, the size and weight, the larger the better for utility vehicles, and the towing capacity basically as a kind of chassis-based limitation value is another base value, and then these modify things. So this vehicle, our family sport vehicle, definitely has no trouble towing things. Towing things as in towing things fast, but its chassis is not really made for it, so it doesn't get very high base stats in it. But yeah, there are all kinds of good things in here. You need extra cooling capacity, of course, for pulling a heavy load, because that strains the engine more. You need an appropriate gearbox setting, like a short first gear and so on. You need enough power and good brakes and so on. That is a much revamped thing. And also off-road. Whoa, look at this! Look at this! This is amazing. So many different factors in here. Now, I wonder if they're actually all supposed to be there. Looks like it. Yeah, this looks like it. Okay, so that's pretty awesome. And yes, so here we have a completely also wiped it out, rebuilt from scratch. This will have your choices will have a lot more impact on what you're scoring there, and I think this will play a lot better. I still have to test it myself. I mean, I've made up the dependencies and spreadsheets and stuff, but and after a few years of doing this, I have a reasonable gut feel for where to place things and how to manipulate in order to make a decent starting value for these dependencies, but they will probably need some tweaking. So keep that in mind. The only thing that hasn't changed is the fuel economy. That will be done in more detail at some point. We want to split these up into cruise tests and acceleration tests separated, so that it becomes a little clearer, but other than that, it will remain the same. So basically, you could say that this is a very, very thorough revamp, and from the length of this video, you've probably guessed as much at the start of it already. Okay, I think that's it though. I probably have forgotten plenty of things. There are so many changes. So after all this, you wonder one main thing. When is the release? The release into open beta branch, that is the branch you need to opt into if you want to get the update. It's not automatic otherwise, if you're in the default branch. That will come tomorrow. Tomorrow, Friday. So, yes, Friday before Christmas. To keep our promise, and so far, I mean, it is still a little buggy here and there, but nothing major as far as we have seen so far. But we haven't done much testing yet either. So, expect it to be rough, expect it to be new, and expect it to be very different to what you have played so far, and you will have to relearn a few things, especially like the suspension setup stuff. You've seen how much of an effect it will now have on your car in general. Okay, and that's it. No. Oh, another thing. The developer studio Camshaft software will shut down over Christmas, and we will be back at the start of January, I think on the 3rd or something, and we will probably do 1 or 2 days or something where we answer support questions and stuff, maybe look into the forums once or twice or so, but don't expect us to be around quite as much as usual. So 23rd till the 3rd, basically, we are gonzos. Yes, we are gone. If you're wondering how to get into the open beta, well, you have to right-click your game in Steam, in your Steam library, select Properties, then you select Betas, and that's a folder there, and then you select the open beta branch. That doesn't require a password. So you just select it and the game will update and you can get playing. But one major disclaimer here. One major disclaimer. Your old cars will not be compatible. You have seen how much has changed. The whole car designer has changed. Your old cars will not be compatible. So if you don't want to lose your cars, then don't join the open beta. But now, that really should be it. I hope you enjoyed, and you will have a lot of fun with the new version of the game, as rough as it is. And see you guys next time.